Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Happy New Year, Chaos Kids. I'm Amber.
And I'm Naomi, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, sissy.
Hi. How's it going?
Hi. Great. Are you pro or con or indifferent to New Year's resolutions?
I'm having deja vu because we've absolutely had this conversation before on the podcast.
I know, and I can't remember, so I'm circling back.
Okay, I remember, so I will refresh memories, and for those that are new, and say I'm not a fan of resolutions.
Now
what were we calling it this year? This last time we had this conversation, I had a conversation with one of my dear friends and also a Chaos Kids Club member, Jackie, about this, and we agreed to refer to them as maybe just goals, not resolutions, because resolution is so definitive and is
okay. I do remember this conversation.
Right,
let me phrase it differently. Right. Are you a fan of seeing the new year as like a chance to start anew with a goal or whatever it is you want to call it?
No, I'm probably because I don't know. For me, like New Year's the calendar just seems so arbitrary to me in relation to the seasons. I'm more in tune with like the seasons than I am with the calendar, if that makes sense. And like
it does.
January is still like deep in the heart of winter, and like winter has its own vibe and its own kind of perspective and brings its own set of stuff that like I prefer to kind of just focus seasonally rather than yearly, if that makes sense.
All right. It does make sense. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What about you? You throwing down some resolutions this year?
You know, actually I'm same. I don't celebrate New Year. It's kind of arbitrary to me also, but I just had a thought the other day and it didn't even like connect that it was the new year, but I was like, man, I think I'm overdue for a new vision board.
Sister, we talked about this last New Year's.
God damn it. So the summary here is that New Year's resolutions maybe don't work because here we are again.
Still don't have a new vision board. 2023 has come and gone.
I'm going to really wow you, and I'm going to do it.
I love it. We talked about this. I love a glue stick. Love a glue stick.
Oh, we did talk about this. I love a good decoupage. Yeah. All right.
Also, for the record, you had video content on your list for 2023. And while we didn't exactly go full YouTube, we do have a TikTok, and there is video content of the podcast in circulation now. So, you know.
Oh yeah, goals were met just because I can't remember what they were.
Sure. What are you drinking, sister?
Thank you for asking. I'm drinking a 2020 Malbec Mendoza from Argentina. It's a deep red.
You and the deep red.
Rolling in the deep. You know what? We have 3 new Chaos Kids.
We do. Oh my God. It was a red letter week on the Patreon.
It was.
You have those names pulled up?
I do. And I wanted to ask you, well, first off, big shout out to Brienne C.
Hey, Brienne. Welcome.
Hey, Brienne. Welcome. Allie M.
Hi, Allie.
Allie M. Allie M. sent that nice email.
She sent us the sweetest email.
Yeah.
The sweetest. You guys, we love emails so much.
It made our day.
It made our week. Are you kidding me?
And the third one, I guess, is somebody that you connected with on TikTok. And I don't know if I should call her by her handle or her name.
Yes. You know what? I'm not sure either. So we'll just call her Wonder Woman, because that's kind of how she goes by on TikTok too. And she's got like an awesome like Wonder Woman avatar for her profile pic. And she's amazing. And she's also in Florida. We have another Chaos Kids Club member down in Florida.
Oh, hey, Noelle is in Florida. So maybe at the next wine night, we'll find out if they're in close proximity, you know?
Right.
And start their own sub club in Florida.
Some club in Florida. Oh my God. You want to know what's even crazier? Totally coincidentally. The crime I'm going to tell you about today happened in Florida.
Oh, is that a coincidence or are the odds forever in their favor?
Look, I'm not one to defend Florida because that place is a nightmare. But listen, there's something you guys need to understand. There is a law in Florida called the Sunshine Law. Okay. And that means that basically the journalists, news agencies, what have you in Florida, or maybe even outside of Florida, they all have access to everything. There is very little that is like kept behind like the police blotter line, right? Like, so just to be clear, this whole Florida man thing really stems from that, where like in a lot of other states, a lot of the shenanigans that people get up to just don't make it to the light of day at the frequency that it does in Florida because of the access that the Sunshine Law gives to news agencies.
You are exactly right. It's the age-old question too of, is it happening more or is it being reported on more? Oftentimes it's being reported on more.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm going to take us to Florida. I'm going to tell you about something horrible that happened in Florida.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about Maria Suarez Cassagne. I think that's how you say her last name.
Okay.
In December of 2014, Maria Suarez Cassagne, everyone called her Pia, was living in her home in Oldsmar, Florida. So Oldsmar has a population of just under 15,000 people, or right thereabouts, and is on the Gulf Coast side of Florida, just outside of Tampa on the Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Both her sons were living with her at the time, Christian and Mario. Mario was 26, Christian was 23. Pia's daughter, Maria, was around 16 at that time, but was no longer living in the house.
Oh, the only one that's underage is not in the house.
Well, things were kind of rough in the house. And so Maria, she left. So Pia's middle child, Christian, had been going through it for a while. Growing up, Christian was happy and affectionate, and Pia's home was as normal as they come. But around the time Christian turned 18, somewhere between 18 and 20, he began acting out. He couldn't hold down a job. He didn't want to drive. And he stopped taking showers because he said that Pia and Maria were watching him through the television.
Uh-oh. He's at that age where maybe a pretty acute mental health issue is creeping up.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay.
He isolated himself from the rest of the family, often standing out in the backyard talking to God and the stars.
Well, I mean, I guess that's so far a relatively harmless activity if you're going through it.
Yep. So he also began interacting with his sister Maria in what is described as, quote, inappropriate ways.
Oh.
And it was concerning enough that Pia started to make sure that Maria and Christian were never home alone together. In fact, his behavior was so concerning all around that Pia would eventually lose her job because she never felt like she could leave Christian alone at all.
Oh my God. Okay. This is major sidebar right now. I've thought about this a million times. Not that I'm in these shoes, but what I feel so much for parents that have adult children that won't ever actually be able to adult. You know, if you put them somewhere else, like you feel like such a shit, but it also means that you never have a life. Like never.
Right.
What do you do?
I know multiple people in my life personally who are in that situation where they have an adult child that just can't and is, in their 30s even, and like at home, fully taken care of by their parents still,
I know.
And there's lots of different reasons for that, but like that can come about, like physical or mental, like, right.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's rough because, because it's like you work so hard to raise them And it is a lot of work. And part of parenting is like, you have this, I don't want to call it reward, but or a light at the end of the tunnel, because that makes it sound so bad. But you have this, under normal circumstances, this expectation that once they get to a certain age, even if it's not like right at 18, like they get to a certain age, they're doing their thing and they're becoming their own adult person, and they're getting a career, they're getting a family, they're right, all of these things. And you get to like transition as a parent out of like direct care into, like supportive and cheerleading, and you know what I mean? Like work on like an adult relationship with them. And having a child in these circumstances makes that impossible. Right?
Yeah. Oh God. It's just so sad. It's just so sad. I know.
And this was also why Maria moved out. Right?
That's the other thing. It's like, sorry, you're like, I'm 5 seconds in.
No, it's fine.
Also, but you displace the other child who's a minor. Like, there's no right answers. There are no right answers.
I've, again, in similar circumstances where I know people who have multiple children, and, one of them is high needs in some way, shape, or form. And inevitably the other children get, like, I don't want to say neglected, but, it becomes like a more concerted effort to give attention to those kids that don't have the high needs. And oftentimes the children with high needs, like, really limit what the family can do together as a family, right? Like vacations and outings and what have you, right? So it impacts the whole family system, right? So Christian started having run-ins with the law, getting picked up for like wandering the neighborhood and asking people if he could live with them. His record included arrests for loitering and prowling, resisting officers without violence, and disorderly conduct. He'd even been under an involuntary hold based on the Florida's Baker Act, which allows for the temporary emergency detention of a person who is mentally ill and may pose a danger to themselves or others. All the states have some version of this law on the books and have for a really long time, right? It's the 72-hour hold. It's the, right, like involuntarily, like we're locking you up for a few days to like, get you evaluated and calm you down. And right. So that's definitely happened with him at this point. Pia had been working at Meese Countryside Hospital in admitting, and she brought Christian there, but was unable to get him help there. She couldn't afford private care for him because, like, who could fucking afford that?
No shit.
And she couldn't find a room for him in any state facilities. Like, no one would take him or had room for him, right? So she was forced to care for him on her own. She would have to crush his pills and sprinkle them over his food because he refused to take any medication.
Oh, God.
And when he figured out what she was doing, he accused her of poisoning him and was like really angry about it because he didn't want to take his medicine.
Yeah.
And often in situations like this, that's the case, right? Like they are not compliant with their medicine.
Right. And they certainly aren't going to be compliant with their medicine on their own. You can't just be like, that's oftentimes what happens too, is they stay on their medication long enough that you think they're good to go. And then you turn them loose and they stop taking and you're back at square one. And
you're right back where you started. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Pia was dealing with this for years, right? She wanted him to have 24-hour care and to be made to take his medication. And ultimately she wanted him to be safe, right? But she was unable to do that. And she was also just going around in circles with the care that she could find for Christian. One doctor diagnosed him as schizophrenic, but another decided Christian was depressed. And yet another doctor diagnosed him as bipolar. And of course, every new diagnosis came with a new medication. And then when that eventually stopped working, they would just increase the dosage or prescribe a new one. And when Pia could get Christian to take his meds, they weren't really helping much anyway.
I wonder if none of those were the right diagnoses then.
Well, who knows, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she had like a stack, like there was like a big fatty file, of the records on this stuff. She continued to get him therapy, trying desperately to help her son, and she was afraid of him too. It wasn't just Maria. Christian was angry all the time. He often accused Pia of loving his brother Mario more than him, and Pia slept with a large kitchen knife under her pillow at night.
Oh God, this poor woman.
Mm-hmm.
Where's their father?
No mention of the father anywhere in any of the articles that I read at all.
Okay. All right.
Unknown.
Mm.
So Christian's grandparents also helped out where they could, and often they were the ones that would take him to his therapy appointment.
Mm-hmm.
On the 30th of December in 2014, they took him to a regularly scheduled therapy session. That therapist told them and Christian that he needed to find a new psychiatrist.
Okay.
I mean, and at this point, I don't even know how many doctors he's seen, right?
God. Right.
He's 23. This has been going on for, 4 or 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next day, the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, Pia was doing some organizing at the house. She was out in the garage going through storage boxes and getting things sorted. She had asked Christian more than once over the past couple of days to help her by moving some of the boxes that she couldn't carry herself, either down to the basement or up to the attic. It depends on which article you read, but out of the garage and into another place is what she was trying to do. And so she asked him again at this time on New Year's Eve, right? She asked him again, will you, move these boxes that I've been asking you to move? Mario was home. He was doing something in his room upstairs, and he realized that like a good 20 minutes had gone by and there was like no sounds coming from anywhere in the house. Like it was too quiet,
Uh-oh. Uh-huh.
So he left his room to go check on things, and he made his way into the garage. Trigger warnings for all the things here. This is where it gets bad. And he saw against a wall in the garage, propped up was an axe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole lot of blood on the concrete floor. So following the trail of blood out of the garage into the garbage cans on the side of the house, he found Pia's body next to the trash cans, and her body had no head.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Mm.
Her head would later be found by police in a garbage bag in the garbage can.
God. Oh, God, he must have snuck up on her or something if Mario didn't hear a scream or anything.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
God, that's chilling. Mm-hmm.
So Mario called 911, and it sounds like other neighbors did as well because they had seen Christian riding his bicycle through the neighborhood looking odd or something. I guess he approached some people who were playing poker in their garage and asked for a beer.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave him water instead, and they noticed blood on his ankles, so they also called the police. The police responded to Mario's call, and once all of Pia's remains were discovered, they cordoned off the crime scene and they went searching for Christian. There were helicopters and the whole thing. He was found about 4 blocks away riding his bike. Christian tried to get away, but that didn't happen. There was some mention of like a foot chase.
Mm-hmm.
He was taken into custody and brought to the station to be interviewed. During his interrogation, he admitted to killing Pia. He said he'd been thinking about it for a couple of days because she had been nagging him about moving the boxes, and she clearly loved Mario more than him.
Oh, he is so disconnected. Oh.
And that day, when she had asked him again to move the boxes, he snapped and grabbed an axe. He hit her repeatedly and so brutally that he decapitated her. He put her head in a garbage bag and threw it in the trash. And because he couldn't lift her, he dragged her body to the side of the house. He did make a very poor attempt to clean up the blood, then gave up and jumped on his bicycle and rode away.
Oh my God.
The sheriff, in speaking with the press, said, quote, in a very calm, cool way, he explained what he did, why he did it, and what happened. And by talking to him, you wouldn't know he had any mental illnesses. That's very scary.
Oh, shit. Oh.
Yeah.
That scares me.
I know.
Oh.
Christian was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. But Christian did not go to trial right away. He was kept in a hospital for long-term care to put him through therapy and get him on the right medications.
Okay.
This lasted for 3 years. He started out attacking correction officials and being very volatile, but he was eventually able to sit across a table without being shackled and discuss the ramifications of the plea deal he was being offered.
Wow.
Keeping Christian indefinitely in a state mental hospital means declaring him insane. And that's where everyone in Christian's family would like him to be.
No shit.
But the problem is the doctors decided that he is no longer a danger because of this 3-year stay inpatient.
Don't get me fucking started on this.
Yes. And this is where it all gets so fucked, because if he's let out after 3 years because he's doing good, what's to keep anyone safe when he stops taking his meds or going to therapy or his meds stop working again?
Mm-hmm.
And the police know this.
Oh my God. I feel so strongly about this. I used to get so mad when people were in custody pending trial and a competency hearing would be held, and the evaluators would go to the jail to visit them multiple times to determine competency. And almost every time when someone was in custody, they were determined competent. And I'm like, of course they are. They have their meds and a place to sleep and 3 meals a day.
And structure.
And they don't have that in their real life. They're always going to be competent when they're in a facility. Not always, but you know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We had one guy that just kept cycling through competent, so he'd be released and then picked up on another charge because as soon as he was released, he wasn't taking his meds, he wasn't eating, he was unhoused. New charge. And then a competency eval. I mean, wash, rinse, repeat over and over and over. It's like
revolving fucking door.
Jesus Christ. Yes. Anyway.
So the plea deal he accepted in July of 2008 was 25 years. He is currently set to be released in November of 2039 and will be I think 52 about that at that time.
Mm.
His sister Maria said in an interview, quote, "My mom loved Christian. She would do anything to protect him, but nobody could help us. She went to therapists, psychiatrists, counselors. Every time something else happened, they would say, up his dose of meds. They didn't take the time to really look at Christian and figure out what was wrong with him."
God.
Christian's uncle said, "So maybe he gets out in 20 years. What happens after that? Where is he going to go?" His sister is afraid of him. I mean, terrified. Not only did he kill her mom, but he wanted to make her his woman. That's the inappropriate thing.
Fuck.
They say they'll monitor him for 10 years and make sure he takes his medicine. He's not going to take his medicine. Everybody just washed their hands of him. How could he be found competent after what he did?
No shit.
And he's not going to get the comprehensive mental health treatment in prison he was getting in the hospital. So...
No, and when they say keep an eye on him, he's not going to get it when he's released either. That means check in with parole every couple of months. There's no, you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Ugh.
So that's the story. Just another failure of the American medical system and its utter inability to meet our needs, especially where mental health is concerned.
No shit.
How many of this have we had on the show at this point, Amber?
Almost all of them, because I don't believe there's a very low percentage of people walking around this planet that are just fucking evil. Almost everybody has a mental health or substance abuse issue.
Right.
Everyone that's committing a crime has some other deep-rooted issue going on that they didn't get the treatment for, in my, not opinion. I mean, that's statistically true.
This is facts. Well, this reminds me a lot of Teresa Butts and Jennifer Hopper.
Yes.
Right?
That was
very similar. Very similar. That young man was also skirting around the edges of serious crimes and not getting any mental health treatment and refusing mental health treatment. And the most horrible outcome came from that.
Right. I wonder what his diagnosis was and the medication during that 3-year stay where he seemed to be improving. I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really talk about that, but I mean, HIPAA or whatever, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. God damn it.
But I mean, I'm sure that what you were saying is a huge part of it. He was in a controlled environment. He was going through therapy, probably multiple times a day. He was doing therapeutic sessions. He was
Mhm.
taking medicine. He was eating 3 meals a day, right? Like he was like just that, just like having a place to sleep, having the meals made for you and like making you sit down and eat them, taking your medicine, like sitting in on group and one-on-one therapy sessions, right? Like all of that
Mhm.
combined, like of course someone's going to be stable then.
Right. Right. That
But that's not a cure.
no. Also,
And
maybe is
and
an indication
medication,
that he needs that forever. If that's the
right?
only time he's been stable.
Right. I know.
I'm so mad.
I'm so sorry, sister. That's the, last year I covered a murder on New Year's Eve, and it was Scott Kalogi who killed his family.
His whole family after they kind of
And
had like family game night and stuff, right?
And he also had been going to therapy for years and showing all kinds of symptoms of, something akin to schizophrenia, voices telling him what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and also they had also struggled to get him the mental health care that he needed. And it ended up costing like 4 lives.
Mm-hmm. I probably said this last year then too, but there's no way to know because I guess I just repeat myself every year. But I always think of this case that actually the judge that I used to work for was the defense attorney on this case, and it was very, very similar, but it was local here.
The grandparents. Yep.
Yes. Because when that's your baby, you don't want to put them in a facility, but there's a reason why people go to school for many, many, many years to be qualified to take care of people like that.
Yes.
And I think we need to do a better job of we need to do a much better job of having like really good quality permanent mental health facilities. Because I think part of the problem is so many of those places are so fucked. Nobody wants to.
Yep.
It's like Girl Interrupted. Nobody wants to send their child there.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But if it was like, some of these fucking celebrity rehab centers in Malibu, then maybe it'd be like, here you go.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Because these places
are
are always underfunded, and most of the people that work at them are doing it for like, it's a labor of love because they're not making good money.
Right.
They're doing it because they're passionate about it. And that doesn't really work in a society that says you need to make a certain amount of money just to be able to like pay your rent,
Right. Or it's a pit stop. Like I just got out of med school, but I'm, this ain't long term for me, which sometimes you end up like, that's true a lot of the times too with defense attorneys. You have defense attorneys that are truly passionate about it and defense attorneys that are like, I just got out of law school, so here I am. Because you're talking about making pennies when you have the degree to be really raking it in. You either have to be passionate or you suck so bad that that's where you're placed. There's not enough people, all of it needs to be better. All of it needs to be better.
All of it needs to be better.
Sister, I'm pissed off. I'm so fucking pissed off.
Well, do you have a New Year's chaos for me then? Can we pivot?
We can pivot to something else that's also bleak.
Oh.
So sorry about that.
Okay. Preemptive apologies. I love those.
Let me tell you the silver lining of this chaos is that I finished my chaos story last weekend and then remembered that it was supposed to be a New Year's chaos story. So then I did another one. So now I've got one, I've got some inventory that is
good for you. I don't, but good for you.
God, that's like the whole year that I accidentally made 2 car payments and didn't realize I was doing it.
It's exactly like that.
Oh, God. All right, I'm going to tell you, mine is also 2014.
Oh, we do this often. It's kind of spooky. Okay.
It is spooky. So this is the 2014 Shanghai New Year's Eve Stampede.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yeah. So, fun fact, a stampede, or also known as a crushing, is the surge of individuals in a crowd in response to a perceived danger or loss of physical space. It often disrupts the orderly movements of crowds, resulting in irrational and dangerous movements for self-protection, leading to injuries and fatalities.
Great.
I know that I say this all the time, so I can't be trusted. I'm like the gal who cried wolf, but this is also one of my biggest fears.
You remember when we went to Pearl Jam at the Gorge?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course you do. It was iconic, right? It was iconic.
Epic. Mm-hmm.
It was fucking epic. It was like the first time Pearl Jam had played at the Gorge in like a decade. They were doing like 2 shows, but we went to the first show. They played for like 3.5 hours. And at one point, Ed Vedder was like, "We're supposed to do another show tomorrow, but fuck those guys." And they kept playing for like another hour. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
God, it was amazing.
But the whole place was packed. And I don't know how many people fit at the Gorge, but I want to say it's like 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were leaving, I was like, this is too much. Like, this is too much. This is too much, and something bad could happen. And actually, that reminds me too. Sorry, I'm totally tangenting on you.
Love
this time.
it. Love it.
When I was in high school, our football team went to a championship, which is they called the King Bowl, which took place in the Kingdome, which if anyone's not from around Seattle, you may not know, the Kingdome used to be like the sports arena in Seattle. And they blew it up, like famously blew it up when they demolitioned it, like live on TV. You can find it online. It's like everybody watched them blow up the Kingdome. But it was like the place, right? And so we would go to the the King Bowl happened every year. It was like all the high school, it was like the state championships basically. And our school was a AAA school, which at the time was the biggest level a high school could be, the population wise. So we went, like our football team went to the King Bowl and played Tumwater.
I was just going to say Tumwater. I remember that too.
Tumwater. We played Tumwater, which are like these big country boys, like big country boys. It was kind of amazing. So we played Tumwater, and they had the like what they called the rooter section, which was like this whole section on either side of like the middle of the sidelines where the high schools, like the kids from the high schools could like go to watch the game. And so it was one of those events that goes all day, like all the high school, like at every level, like this triple C's and the B's and the double B, right? And all the way. And then the last game of the day is the AAA game. And we were all waiting our turn to go into the rooter section on the Inglemore side. And I remember I was with a friend of mine, and we were like locked arms, and it was like such a push. I'm not even exaggerating, such a push for all these kids to get into that section when they opened the doors for us, that at one point, I swear to God, my feet were not on the ground.
I believe you.
I was just moving with the crowd without even like moving my feet. It was fucking terrifying.
Yes.
Terrifying. I will never forget. That's probably why I remember this whole thing so well, is because I remember that moment and being so fucking scared that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, because it doesn't take much. And then it's just really a quick snowball effect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am constantly scoping out all the exits. When I buy concert tickets, I get an aisle seat. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, according to the World Health Organization, a mass gathering is characterized by the concentration of people at a specific location for a specific purpose over a set period of time, and has the potential to strain the planning and response resources. And stampedes are the leading cause of injuries and fatalities in mass gatherings. Mm-hmm. That's terrifying. So it's 2014 at the Bund. I think I'm saying that right.
Okay.
In Shanghai. The Bund is a waterfront area and a protected historical district in central Shanghai. It's like their version of Times Square. Uh-huh. They have 2 New Year celebrations every year there. The main event is the Chinese Lunar New Year celebration, which is held every January or February-ish, depending. But they also pay tribute to the traditional Western New Year's Eve fireworks celebration. So they have this big bang at the Bund is what it's called.
Okay. And this is for like the Western calendar New Year.
Yes. Yeah. December 31st. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on this particular year, the big attraction was billed as a 5D light show. It was supposed to project colors onto the Bund, and They also had just, I guess, were revealing the city's newest landmark, which was a 2,074-foot Shanghai Tower, which is one of the world's
Oh,
largest buildings. And there was going to
uh-huh.
be like lights going on there, right? It's a big deal.
Right.
So, starting at about 9 p.m., around 100,000 people made their way towards the Bund.
Okay. That's
And
a lot of people.
by 11 p.m., the crowd had reached 310,000.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many people gather in Times Square.
I don't know, but I was reading through like when I was finding like Stampede statistics, which is like, that was fun. Most of them are in
That was
China
fun.
just because their population is already so massive. Like they maybe could benefit from having several of these locally, even though that would be very expensive. But like
Right.
when there's one option for that many people, this is going to happen.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or
So
just don't celebrate, you guys. Like, we don't have to celebrate.
who fucking
It's fine.
cares? Like,
Stay home.
you know, I am in the camp of like, I'm not super into fireworks.
I don't need it, you know? Like,
I
they
don't
were fun when I
either.
was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's that I'm not into crowds. I'm not into the high price you have to pay to watch them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You got to go through a lot. You got to go through a lot to get it. Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot.
So it's around 11:35 local time on New Year's Eve, and the crush centered on a stairway at Chen Yi Square leading up to a viewing platform overlooking the river. So there were people coming from different directions, like some people coming down the stairs, other people going up the stairs in large crowds. And people at the top of the stairs started to push each other amidst the congestion, causing people to tumble down the stairs, which immediately caused
Panic.
and a stampede. Yeah.
Oh my God. You guys, who's pushing? Why are we pushing?
I mean, I'm not really sure. You know, this is what scares me. Is it that could have even started with somebody not looking in front of them and talking to someone next to them and bumping. Like, I feel like all it takes is a small bump when you have 300,000 people.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is like that whole thing about how like one single car on the freeway can cause like a 10-mile backup if they fuck up bad enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or a 10-car
Literally.
pileup.
Yes.
Yes.
Like one person did that, and
Mhm.
we're all in it now.
Yeah. So people were trampled and were being asphyxiated. The crowd was so thick that when first responders started to try to get there, they struggled to even reach the victims. And so people, like, at some point they did organize some sort of line, a human fence, if you will, so that the ambulance could get through.
Wow.
One person said, quote, "We were just trying to walk up the steps to see the light show, and then people at the top began pushing their way down." A video posted later showed a dense crowd pushing to descend to the lower staircase, causing people at the front to topple under the weight of the crowd. So people are literally just like rolling down the stairs, and then people behind them are rolling down and falling on top of.
My God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute, sister. The last chaos story I told was the Italian hall disaster that also involved people piling up at the bottom of a stairwell.
I know. God damn it.
Jesus Christ.
Listen.
You guys, we're learning a lot about safety here.
Oh,
okay.
My last page is safety measures. We'll get there.
You guys, when the kids were little, when Sebastian and Jade were little, Amber's most quoted phrase out of Amber's mouth was, "That's a safety violation." She still says it sometimes, but not as much because the kids are grown now.
I do, but now I've got a grandkid, and I think I scared the shit out of him at the last family gathering because I grabbed him so quickly because he was at the top of the stairs.
Oh.
And then I startled him and he started crying. I'm like, look,
Grandma,
your child will not be physically harmed in my care. Emotionally, clearly, but there will be no broken bones on my watch. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's a safety violation.
That was a safety. Someone should put a cone there, first of all. Oh my God.
Having flashbacks to Fire Marshal Bill. Let me show you something.
Yeah. Okay, so a video posted later, blah, blah, blah. Yes, crowds going down the stairs. So at 11:40, the crowd began to chant, fall back, fall back, fall back, letting people... It's the thing too, when the crowd is so massive and like all of a sudden things come to a stop or you hear like a kerfuffle way ahead, like not everybody knows that there's a stampede.
Right.
So people who knew that there was are telling people at the top of the stairs, like, go back, go back, go back.
Right.
I don't know if they were picking up what they were throwing down, but
is that even helping at this point?
It eased it a little bit. Other pictures and videos posted to Chinese social networking sites showed chaotic scenes in the wake of the stampede. Crowds packed against police lines, long rows of ambulance, medical workers treating people who lay on the ground. CPR was being given to like 10 to 15 people in the street by just citizens, like not first responders.
Wow.
Yeah. And one person said they remember like walking by somebody who just had like shoe prints on their back. They were just on their face down and just like had shoe prints on their back.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Oh God. The deceased and injured were taken to at least 3 hospitals throughout Shanghai, most of whom had pulmonary contusions and bone fractures. A total of 36 were killed and 47 injured, and most of the attendees were people in their 20s. It was like,
oh my
young
God.
adults. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the wake of that, 4 district officials were fired and 7 others were disciplined. The investigation team said local officials had failed to prevent public risk. I mean, that's pretty vague. I dug and dug. You know, I think Shanghai might have like the opposite of Florida, which is
well,
we don't give information.
Well, part of it too is that like a lot of the stuff that goes, like a lot of the internet and stuff in China is like highly controlled, and like not a lot of it like leaves China. They have quite a clamp down on their internet, and like for example, like you can't just like send information into China like on the internet. Like the government actually controls their internet, like highly controls their internet. Their TikTok is like separate from ours.
Interesting.
They have their own apps that they use that are not any of the apps that we use. Like they have their own social media platform that's not Facebook. In fact, they have, I wish I could remember what it's called. They have a Facebook-like platform that they use for social media, but it also is tied into like all these other apps. And it's like this one-stop shop that everybody uses. And you can actually use it to like pay for things like at the convenience store and shit, but it's also your social media. It's basically like Venmo and Facebook and Instagram and like Uber Eats, like all like in one app under one profile. But it's all like only in China.
That sounds convenient and scary. I literally said that line that posted on Chinese social media, and it didn't occur to me like that's a different social media. Like
it's its own thing. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So all that to say that I didn't get a lot of information on like, other than obvious, like possibly the attendees to workers ratio maybe was off or whatever. They didn't say what and why these 4 particularly were like, you're accountable and you're out of here. Like I dug and dug and dug, but
although I'm going to say, like, even if we don't know what or why, they're actually holding public officials accountable, which is something that, other countries could take a note from in that playbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no shit. So here's what I did find was that, so the 4 officials that were removed were the party chief of Hongpao district, which includes the Bund and Riverfront area and his deputy, plus the district's public security, safety, and deputy police chief. The officials that were punished were in tourism, public security, urban management, planning, And they said, quote, preventative and response preparation was sorely lacking. Early warnings on the night were weak and the response measures were not suitable.
Yeah, they didn't plan their party very well.
My understanding too is like they do this every year and it's a huge turnout, but not that huge. Like I don't think they accounted for like the new tower and the 5D light show and like it's going to be cray that there was going to be like such a huge turnout that they couldn't control it.
Right.
The investigation described a series of events leading up to that, which district and police officials were aware that the crowd was growing and getting out of hand, but failed to act or communicate in time.
How drunk was this crowd, you think?
Oh, I mean, by that time of the night, they were, 25 minutes away from ringing in the new year. I'm sure very. Families of 36 victims of the Stampede in Shanghai, kept saying will receive. And this was 2014. And I dug and dug and dug and couldn't find if they did.
Right.
800,000 yen, which is about 130,000 US dollars. So the 49 people who were injured were to receive compensation
commensurate with their
appropriate to the injury. Yes.
Right.
So here's my safety tips.
Oh, I love a good safety tip.
This was actually really interesting. I read this article from the Washington Post, how to tell when a crowd is becoming dangerous. And I'm just going to read directly from it. And then.
Okay, great.
Okay. So it says crowd density can shift in seconds. And by the time a situation starts to feel risky, the crowd already may be packed too tightly for an individual to leave. But there are some subtle danger signs early on. If the crowd is moving slow, that's a sign that density is increasing. Listening to crowd sounds is important. If you hear people complaining about discomfort or cries of distress, it's a signal that things are getting out of control, and pay attention to your instincts. Once the crowd density begins to exceed about 5 people per 11 square feet, the situation is dangerous. While it may be difficult to gauge the crowd density, you will notice when you're starting to feel confined, which means it's time to leave. Keep your eyes open and look for the most obvious escape route.
I would also add in here that it depends on, like, there's other factors to take into consideration too, right? Like, for example, just perfect, like, current events example. I saw footage the other day of a protest march or a rally, if you will, for Palestine in Yemen. And it had like drone footage so you could see like the whole crowd. And they estimated that there was like somewhere around 2 million people at this rally. It was insane. It was awesome. Like literally in the true sense of the word, like awesome. Right. But like there was no stampede. There was no, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like, what I would call like peaceful protests where hundreds of thousands of people are together in a city center marching down the street. And this doesn't happen. Right. But when it does happen, it's like, it's in a stadium at a rock concert. It's New Year's Eve at the promenade. It's right. Like so many of these. So it's like, what else is going on with this crowd? How much are they drinking on average in this group of people? Like, where are they? What time of day is it? What are they there for? Right. Like that also, I think, like, what's the demographic of people? Right.
Right.
Like, I think that stuff comes into play, and like that there is more risk depending on what the actual reason for gathering is. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And obviously like this, it kind of sucks because the safest place to really be is in the back, because especially like at a concert where that usually happens is people rushing the stage.
Right.
And it sucks.
Up against the stage.
Yeah. Because if you want to see your favorite artist or whatever, it's like, but here's the safety tips if it's too late and you're in it.
Oh, okay. Now we're in it.
Now you're in it. There's nowhere to go. You need to stay on your feet, and you need to brace yourself to move with the crowd rather than pushed against it. It says walk in a diagonal, zigzagging through the crowd if you can.
Okay.
Keep your feet in a boxer-like stance, like with your feet apart and your knees slightly bent, like Groucho Marx.
Right. You need to like lower your center of gravity and give yourself a wider stance. Yeah, like more ground. You need to stay more grounded.
Yeah. It's important to keep your hands up because once the crowd gets packed too tightly, your hands could be pinned to your sides. And you should use your arms also in like a boxer-like pose across your chest to help protect your chest and maintain a breathing zone. If you have a backpack, turn it forward over your chest.
Interesting.
Yeah. Short people are at a higher risk. What the fuck? Don't bring children into crowds. But if it happens, put them on your shoulders or on a piggyback ride. Don't drag them. Shouting is a waste of energy and oxygen. Experts note that most crowd crushes are relatively quiet as people work together and try to help each other. Stay calm and keep your head up. That sounds more terrifying.
The quiet crushing?
Yes, quiet asphyxiation. God.
Don't make a sound. Shh. Just let it happen.
If you drop your phone or any item, let it go. Because once you bend down to pick something up,
let it go. Nope.
You're not getting back up.
Nope. You lost your phone. It's fine. Get a new one.
And if you do happen to trip and fall, try to get on your feet. But if you can't, your odds of survival are best if you go into a fetal position on your side.
You got to turn it into a ball. You got to turn it to a ball. Yep.
Protect your head, and you're most vulnerable on your back or stomach. So stay on your side in a ball. Yep. And only you can prevent forest fires. Those are my tips and tricks.
Like my heart is a little elevated right now.
Mine is too. I'm upset.
Your face right now.
I'm so upset with myself. But you know, one of the things that I was reading too that was interesting is that there is an assumption that someone that gets started because someone was being a dick, and that's not always the case. So to your point though, I could say like maybe people intoxicated or excited or rowdy, maybe that's where an accidental push could happen
100%,
or an accidental stumble, you know?
Well, not only that, like, you know, you're less likely to think clearly, panic, and not make good decisions in the next moment, right? When you could like calm it down or do something different, right? Plus, this shit's catching. Panic is catching. It's literally why I'm going to refer back to last week's episode. It's literally why it's illegal to scream fire in a crowded building. It is illegal to do that because it puts people in instant panic mode. And when you're in panic mode, when you're in fear, you make shitty choices. Your ability to think clearly is diminished.
Yeah. Did you ever read the book, The Gift of Fear?
No.
Oh, it's a good book. It's kind of about how to, like, when you're in that moment, to harness it to work in your favor. Rather than have it, you know, fuck things up.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for that, sister.
Go make a vision board.
Fucking New Year.
Happy fucking New Year. Wow.
Welcome to the newest Chaos Kids Club members. We're happy to have you.
So happy.
We're so happy. We love you. We hope that 2024 is less of a shit show than 2023 was. At least that's what I'm hoping for personally.
Samesies.
Yeah. We're on all the things. You can find us everywhere. We're on all the things.
It's true.
Send us a note. Hey, go rate the podcast and write us a little review, especially if you have an Apple product. Go into that Apple podcast and find us and give us a little shout out and a nice, 3+ star rating. You know?
Yeah. What she said. Yeah.
Or you could just send us a note. You can send us a note. You can send Amber love letters and you can send me hate mail. And that's at crimewineandchaos@gmail.com.
I love getting the emails. Makes me so happy.
I love the emails. I love it. Sister, that was
so
fucking chaotic.
Oh
my God.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers. We're 6 minutes in and I'm too hot.
Take it off.